All right, good morning. My name is Noorani. I'm the Executive Director of the National Immigration Forum, and I want to thank everybody, members of the press and others, for attending this press conference this morning, and I really want to thank the incredible leadership standing behind me today to make their voices heard on the urgent need for a 21st century immigration process. 18 months ago, we realized that whoever was to win on November 6th would govern a country divided by America's toxic immigration debate. The leaders gathered here today, and the hundreds upon hundreds across the country knew that things would only get worse if they didn't act. So, conservative and moderate faith, law enforcement, and business leaders launched a campaign to forge a new consensus on immigrants in America, going beyond Washington, D.C. to engage new allies. Through this campaign, we found that once you leave the Beltway dysfunction, there's common ground on the need for an immigration process that works for our economy and our families. Today, over 250 of these leaders are here for a national strategy session to call upon the 113th Congress to work together to create this 21st century immigration process. The consensus that we found comes from the common crisis facing families and businesses and cuts across professional sectors, geographic regions, political stripes, and religious beliefs. The consensus we found lies in a common belief that Congress has failed the American people and the immigrants who are at the mercy of our dysfunctional immigration system. Our consensus is steeped in the common values of family, work, and security, shared by conservatives and liberals alike. The fact is that Americans aren't divided by the immigration debate. Rather, politicians from both sides of the aisle use the immigration debate to divide Americans. This is no longer acceptable. We need common sense fixes to create a reasonable immigration process that moves our nation forward. And we understand that all Americans prosper when we have enforceable laws that value immigrants and immigration. Our points of consensus include: we must modernize our nation's immigration laws so that future immigration of workers and families is legal and orderly. America is the land of freedom and opportunity and will always attract talented and ambitious individuals. We need a process that celebrates freedom and values hard work, welcoming the engineer as well as the farm worker. Second, we must deal honestly with temporary workers and aspiring citizens by creating a workable roadmap to lawful status and citizenship. These laborers and aspiring citizens are part of our communities and our economy and must be treated with dignity. And America needs a just solution for the undocumented immigrants living in our communities, contributing to the fabric and well-being of our cities and towns. Third, we recognize the need for enforcement in the workplace and on the border. As U.S. citizens, we have a right to expect the federal government to develop and enforce laws regarding who is authorized to work and who may cross our borders. But to do this, we need legal channels for people to come to the U.S. for legitimate purposes, allowing us to control the process and prioritize resources so they can target criminals such as smugglers. At the end of the day, immigration is not about politics. It is about human dignity. And how we as a nation treat immigrants reflects our commitment to the values that define us as Americans. It is time for the President to lead members from both parties through an honest, transparent legislative process, and it's time for members of Congress from both parties to catch up to America's desire for just immigration laws. As we will hear in this press conference and over the next 2 days, people who hold a Bible, wear a badge, or own a business demand as much. This morning we have an incredible lineup of speakers, of leaders from faith, law enforcement, and business, and from across the country, who are going to share their thoughts and their feelings and how they would like to see an immigration debate and strategy move forward. Our first speaker is the Honorable Mark Shurtleff, Attorney General of the state of Utah. Mark.
Thank you, Ali. Good to be here today. I appreciate National Immigration Forum and their support and leadership on this issue. You know, as I look out here at the White House, I remember just this past week, my 15-year-old daughter, who until now I thought all she cared about was soccer, music, and boys, went to the movie Lincoln with her friends, and she came back with tears in her eyes and said, "Daddy, you have to go to this movie with me." I was surprised, and then she said, "Was it really Republicans who were concerned about civil rights and individual freedom and liberty?" And I remind her that's the case, and the fact that now as we look at this immigration issue, that things haven't just changed. We're not just here suddenly because of an election. I think there's an opportunity because of this recent election, the results. But these people behind me, these conservative leaders in law enforcement, business, and faith-based communities have been working on this for many years. Almost 3 years ago now in Utah, we decided as a red state we weren't going to follow the example of enforcement only, punitive, drive them out at all costs kind of legislation, state legislation. Understanding that the concern that the federal government wasn't doing their job in taking care of this issue, the states were then stepping up to do it. In Utah, we rejected that, and we said we want to do something different. And we did with the Utah Compact. From there, we met with these good people, with their leadership, and started having regional conferences where in the Midwest, in the Rocky Mountain states, in the Southeast, dozens of states participating, these people behind me leading that effort as we saw this effort grow. And now we have this wonderful opportunity to speak to Congress. And as conservative leaders, as Republicans, it's to my party that I'm speaking, that we have been talking to the wrong crowd. We've been worried about the wrong people. We've been pandering in some cases to a small minority of our party. That mainstream American Republicans and conservatives truly believe in a uniquely American solution to this problem, an American solution. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be breathe free. Those are conservative principles that we are calling upon Congress now with this new strategy, forging a new consensus on immigration reform. It's a delight to be with you today.
With Mark, you have to always lower the microphone afterwards. Our next speaker is Bishop Jaime Soto from Sacramento, California. Bishop.
The Catholic Church in the United States has always been an immigrant church, and we've always been clear that immigration reform is important, not just important to immigrants or to the church, but also it is good for America. This is our history. Our teaching on immigration springs from the scriptures, but it also comes from a solidarity with the daily struggles of immigrants in our parishes, our community programs, our healthcare facilities, and our schools. Immigration is a humanitarian issue with moral implications. For us, for many of us who are here, that immigration is part of a consistent life ethic that respects the human person. Our country can no longer accept the toil and sweat equity of undocumented workers while at the same time scapegoating them, dividing their families, and denying them basic protections. This is the moral issue that our nation now faces, and our elected officials must confront in the months ahead. We who have been working on immigration reform, many of the immigrant communities have waited long enough. Now is the time to get this done. A broken immigration system has fragmented families and divided America. Immigration reform is about making families, as well as America, whole again. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Soto. Our next speaker, our next speaker is also from Utah, Natalie Gochnour, Executive Vice President of Policy and Communications and Chief Economist. Did I just get myself in big trouble? With the Salt Lake Chamber. Thank you.
Usually people goof up my last name.
I got that right.
You got that right. Approximately 2 years ago, a large and diverse group of Utah community leaders gathered at the Utah State Capitol to affix their names to the Utah Compact. With the stroke of a pen, the business community, interfaith leaders, public safety officials, and other community leaders and citizenry signed the Utah Compact, a simple, short, values-based, and inspirational document that called out 5 principles to guide our immigration reform discussion. In the days that followed, the New York Times, a news entity not known for heaping praise on a state like Utah, published an editorial on the Utah Compact that said, quote, "A clearer expression of good sense and sanity than Utah's would be hard to find," end of quote. Later, a member of the Wall Street Journal editorial board noted Utah's Ronald Reagan-like support of free market principles in finding an immigration solution. Better still, in the next legislative session, the Utah legislature passed landmark state-level immigration reform legislation that balanced the legitimate need for improved enforcement with the very real economic and human needs associated with immigration reform. Utah became a model state by adding a state-level temporary worker law to our statutes. While the law had a delayed implementation date, our message to the outside world was clear. Utah is a state that recognizes the economic contribution of immigrants. Utah is a state that puts families first. Utah is a state that welcomes the world, much like we did during the 2002 Olympic Winter Games. And importantly, Utah is a state that believes human kindness should be a defining virtue of our residents. The Utah Compact has now been replicated by about a dozen other states. States all around the country are rallying to promote a more civil, constructive, and compassionate approach to immigration reform. It's high time for Washington, D.C. to do its part. I'm here today on behalf of Utah business leaders to ask the people inside the Beltway to replicate some of the magic that's occurring in the states. We seek legislation that will modernize our nation's immigration laws so that businesses can have the workers they need. We seek legislation that will create a workable roadmap to lawful status. And we seek legislation that will improve enforcement in the workplace and on the border. We call on members of Congress to pass sweeping immigration reform this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Our next speaker is Dr. Richard Land, President of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention. Dr. Land.
Thank you. Fair and just immigration reform is first and foremost a moral issue. God has definite opinions about the way we treat the stranger in our midst. It is imperative that we resolve our nation's immigration crisis and reform our immigration system in ways that respect the rule of law and the human dignity of the undocumented. This crisis is rending the social fabric of our nation in ways that are far more difficult to rend than they are to mend. It is time to begin to mend that social fabric by coming together in a bipartisan way and solving this crisis. It is solvable, and frankly, the people are way ahead of their elected representatives on this issue. They are ready for fair and just and comprehensive immigration reform along the lines that have been outlined by the other speakers and in the press release. This is doable. As we meet with senators and congressmen in the forthcoming days, I'm going to be stressing to them that they need to exercise responsible leadership and forge a coalition of the middle, because there are those on the right who will continue to try to sabotage immigration reform because in their regional locations, fomenting anti-immigration sentiment continues to have short-term political advantage. And there will be those on the left who will attempt to sabotage this effort because they want to continue to use the issue to inflame Hispanics to vote in overwhelming numbers for the Democratic Party. And it's time for the leadership in both parties to ignore those fringes and to forge a responsible coalition of the middle along with the President and give the President a fair and just bill that will get consensus support among the American people. Now, this is a very opportune moment. The Bible says in Ephesians chapter 5 that we are to redeem the time. The word there is to pounce upon time in its kairos moment. Kairos being propitious moment as opposed to the chronos moment. This is a kairos moment. Remember, it's the right thing to do. But a lot of what happens in Washington happens because of enlightened self-interest. And it should be clear to those in the Republican Party who opposed immigration reform that if they want to continue to be a contender for national leadership in this country, they're going to have to change their ways on immigration reform and not only pass it, but embrace it in order to be competitive in the Hispanic community, the fastest growing community in the United States. That's called enlightened self-interest. It's called reality. It's called self-preservation. We'll take their votes, whether for the right reason or the wrong reason, as long as they vote the right way.
Thank you, Dr. Land. Our next speaker is Mark Curran, Sheriff of Lake County, Illinois. Sheriff.
The Sheriff of Lake County, Illinois, and have been Sheriff since 2006. Prior to that, I had a career in law enforcement as a prosecutor at the county, state, and federal level. So when I became Sheriff, in terms of the immigration situation, I saw it as a simple issue. They broke the law, they came here illegally. We're a nation of laws, hence we need to enforce them. Well, digging deeper into that situation, in part, Bishop Soto's comrade, Cardinal George of Chicago, said, well, you're pro-life. There's a consistent dignity of life, and how you treat the immigrant determines in large part whether you actually are pro-life. Similarly, you believe in nuclear families, a father and a mother in the home, and you're advocating an arbitrary policy of deporting one parent, and that's not good for the family as well. Also dig deeper into the issue of how they got here, and was encouraged to do so. And we knew that they came here in large part when we had no immigration laws in effect. The borders were wide open, and we lured them knowing that we desperately needed this labor. Well, at that point in time, the clear reality was that there was no rule of law, so how could I possibly be advocating for a rule of law at this point in time? It wasn't equitable, it wasn't right. And so a conversion took place for me from having been somebody that was certainly illegal immigrant, to somebody that recognized the hard truths. And as a result of that, I've been out there advocating for what's desperately needed, and that is comprehensive immigration reform. From the perspective of a law enforcement officer as well, I'll say this. In Illinois, right now, we're debating a driver's license bill for undocumented workers. We desperately need it. We're confident that it's going to pass in Illinois. But the reason why we have to take these measures is because of the failure of the federal government to work. We're calling upon them in both sides of the aisle. I'm a Republican. Bottom line is you have to do the right thing, and as was so eloquently stated before by Mr. Lamb, that it is the right thing. It's morally the right thing. And in terms of, I sit on the Homeland Security for the National Sheriff's Association, and those of you that are calling for tougher borders and what have you, and better immigration laws in terms of national security, you know the hard reality is until you talk seriously about comprehensive immigration reform, that part of the conversation doesn't happen. So be honest. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Our next speaker is Reverend Samuel Rodriguez, President of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference.
As evangelicals, as an evangelical Christian, as evangelical Christians, our faith stands universally recognized by a simple symbol. Evangelicals and all Christians alike, Catholics. The cross. And that cross is both vertical and it's horizontal. Vertically, we stand connected to God, His kingdom, eternal truth and glory. Horizontally, to both our left and our right, we stand connected to family, culture, society, and community. Immigration reform is both a vertical and horizontal issue. Vertically, the heart of God stands moved by the plight of the immigrant and the suffering. Horizontally, passing immigration reform will serve as a reconciliatory prescription for a nation divided by partisan politics. It is the cross that prompts us to lift our hands towards heaven and stretch our hands towards our fellow man. It is the cross that enables us to see the image of God in citizen and immigrant. It is the cross that compels us to declare that a human being cannot be illegal. It is the cross that drives us to reconcile the rule of law, Romans 13, with treating the immigrant as one of our own, Leviticus 19. For that matter, the cross gives us hope. Hope that as a result of this past election, the days of deportation and self-deportation rhetoric are officially over. Hope that the Democrats remember the promises made and reconcile rhetoric with action. For after all, faith without works is dead. Hope that the party of Lincoln remembers that the movement was founded upon a justice mandate, that they were initially called radical Republicans because they stood committed to doing what was morally correct rather than that which was politically expedient. Hope that Republicans and conservatives do realize that they must cross the proverbial Jordan of immigration reform in order to step into the promised land of the Hispanic electorate. Hope that today marks the day where supporting immigration reform emerges as a pro-faith, pro-family, and conservative position. Finally, as evangelicals, we stand committed to reconciliation and healing. It's time to reconcile both the vertical and the horizontal. Covenant with community. Billy Graham's message with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s march, where we can sing, there is room at the cross and we shall overcome. It's time to reconcile border security with the security of our values, values that include faith, hope, and charity. For at the end of the day, passing immigration reform is not about advancing the agenda of the donkey or the elephant. Immigration reform is about living out the agenda of the Lamb. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Our next speaker is Sheldon Brown, dairy farmer and owner of Woody Hill Farms in Salem, New York. Sheldon.
Thank you. I think that's a tough act to follow. Not that it was an act, sorry. Well, as Allie said, I am a dairy farmer from upstate New York. And can't find my notes right now. And I would say that I've lived this immigration issue for the last 20 years. I guess I want to preface my remarks in that I feel more comfortable with a room of cows than I do with this, this distinguished group here today. But what I would like to say, that I can't find my notes, but I will go ahead anyway, that over the last 15 years, we have employed immigrant labor. These people are hardworking, dedicated, and loyal individuals. As on most dairy farms, our employees are our family. And we, in turn, have become part of their families. We exchange gifts, we have meals together, and we celebrate holidays together. We even, tragically, we had an employee on our farm pass away from a heart attack, and every one of our Hispanic employees went to the wake and to the funeral, which speaks volumes in my mind. Excuse me. Recently, New York State has seen a surge in the demand for milk. And I was heartwarmed today at my hotel to see almost every table eating yogurt. To that cause, Governor Cuomo in New York has, a few weeks ago, held a yogurt summit. And that was to encourage dairy farmers to see what his administration could do to encourage more milk production for the yogurt industry. But without a reliable workforce, we cannot provide the milk to make the yogurt. Secondly, that the yogurt has been a boom not only to New York State farmers, but I would assume consumers. I also have been able to serve on a number of national agricultural boards, so I understand the vegetable, the fruit, berries, nursery crops, whatever, and their need for labor is huge. I'll give you another little story of mine before I close, and that is probably 20 years ago, most of our employees, our workforce, came from farmers' families, the youngsters of our neighbors. As those farms have disappeared in our communities, they're no longer there for us to use or to employ. Therefore, the immigrant labor force, the people from foreign countries, have filled that need, and they've done it very, very well. And lastly, the economic, I don't have to tell this group, the economic, what do I want to say, malaise in rural United States. Our local community is slowly withering away, and I hope it doesn't die, but I mean, we lose our grocery store, our banks, even our coffee shops. But with having the immigrant labor force in our communities, they add both the economic and the social well-being to our communities, and we're greatly appreciative of that. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Sheldon. I guess you're saying that I have to lose a little weight and eat some more yogurt. Our next speaker is Reverend Luis Cortés, president of Esperanza.
Thank you. The Hispanic Evangelical Church is a conservative Christian community. And for us, immigration is a biblical and moral issue. And as we have learned for the Hispanic Evangelical Church, it is also a political issue. This last election, many conservative clergy asked us being the Hispanic faith community, to vote values, That was the euphemism that was used to mean vote Republican pro-life. Because the Republican Party is more pro-life, we should vote for them. Hispanics in the U.S. voted only 27% for candidate Romney. Though we polled prior to the election, 60% Latinos said that jobs was the #1 issue, because we always say what the reporter wants to hear. Pollsters have agreed that New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, Florida all were moved by the Latino vote to the Democratic side. The Pew Hispanic Center stated, and states today, if you check their website, that 77% of Hispanic people want legalization. That's what we want, legalization. There's no doubt that that is what we want. The Hispanic electorate will double by the year 2030. The Hispanic vote moved away from social values to family values. That was not understood. But we just moved away from social values to family values. 1 of every 5 Latinos knows someone who's already been deported. And they're all members of our family, our extended family. So we voted against self-deportation. Now that the election is over, we are hopeful. And that's why we're here. We're hopeful because we believe there is a space for dialogue and action, because we always get a lot of dialogue in Washington, D.C., but we're hoping to see some action. We're looking for consensus and common ground. And so I'm going to mention 5 areas, and then my 2 minutes are up. We want to end the strident talk about Hispanic people in this country and the issue of immigration. Hate talk has no place in this conversation, and the church, in its complete form, all ethnic groups, in the left and the right, will not allow hate talk to continue. We will not allow FAIR to represent conservatives. As conservatives, we are insulted that a group like FAIR always comes and testifies as if they are the leaders of the conservative movement in this country. We will not allow for labor unions to fight against temporary workers. Our families all over the world need to come here to work. And they want to come here legally, they want to do it in the right form, and they will be glad to go home. And some of them, if they come here legally and work in the right way and leave, also deserve the opportunity to stay and become part of the American dream. We want to find a way to create a path of legalization. We are tired of 8 million or 9 million of our brothers and sisters in this country constantly hiding, constantly trying to find ways to become legal, and there's no way. And finally, we ask for people to define what in the world is border security. We discuss it all the time, but it's never been defined. You can never close a border if you don't define what that means. So for all the border hawks out there, we want you to define it with Congress so that we will take whatever amount of money we need and put up the radars, whatever we got to do, the infrared, hire another 10,000 people and put them on the border. Whatever needs to be done, let's get it done. We are a people of hope, and we see the window and the doors open, and we are praying and hoping that by the end of this year, next year, we'll have comprehensive immigration reform. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Our next speaker is Brad Bailey, co-founder and CEO of the Texas Immigration Solution.
Thank you for having me. I'm CEO of the Texas Immigration Solution. It's really my real job is my family own and operate restaurants in Houston. We have 2 seafood restaurants and a catering company. And I feel like for 14 plus years, I've been at kind of ground zero of this issue. I've seen how broken our immigration systems is. I see how, as a job creator and employer, how broken the system is. But I've also worked shoulder to shoulder with many Hispanic and Latinos in our restaurants. Like many of these people have said, we've broke bread together. I've been to their birthdays. They've been to my grandparents' funeral. We're a very, very close group of people. But the rhetoric that went on during the presidential debates, the primaries process, is what really got me in this fight. I saw the hatred language. I saw complaining about the problem versus solving the problem. And I saw the whole gamut. That frustrated me. I wanted to get involved. I've never really been involved in this political arena. I've come up here and lobbied with the Restaurant Association. But I called my friend who's active in the Republican Party, said, what do I got to do? And he says, it's job creators like you that have seen how broken the system is that got to come up and start talking about it. Little did I know I'd be at the National Press Club, talking about this. But it's important. It's important for conservatives to know who's hijacking this debate. It's important for conservatives to know that we need to provide our conservative solutions to this problem. We did that in Texas at the Republican Party convention. We had over 8,000 delegates at the convention. We presented a solution that embraced our conservative principles. We had a broad-based group of people come together. Nowhere in the immigration platform did you see the word illegal alien or name calling. We talked honestly about this problem. And the Republican Party of Texas passed this. But I want to tell you how we passed it. When we went to the floor of the convention, the anti-immigration groups that you've heard about, and I call them the haters, circled around us and started calling us amnesty and started calling us every name in the book. When we presented our solution to the 8,000 delegates of the Republican Party convention, 5 times they attacked our platform. 5 times they wanted to put in the rhetoric and the hate of old. And 5 times over 2/3 of the delegates of that convention supported our solution versus the rhetoric of old. Folks, if you're going to go for 5 days to Fort Worth, Texas and talk about conservative principles, you're diehard conservative. There's no middle of the roaders there. But people understand this. The vocal minority has hijacked this issue. We need to lay everything on the table, and conservatives need to lead on this versus complain about this. And I ask the conservative lawmakers to also listen to who you are talking to. Check their conservative credentials. Make sure they're in it for the right reasons, because in this town, what I've learned is a lot of people don't want the problem to really go away. There's a lot of people getting paid to continue this rhetoric, continue this fight. The National Immigration Forum is not that group. They're sincerely working hard on this group, and that's why I'm so pleased to be here with these people. I never thought I'd quote the word hope and change, but I can tell you right now, I hope and pray that Congress will take this, because change is what needs to happen to our national immigration policy. Thank you so much.
Our final speaker is Jim Wallis, CEO of Sojourners. Jim.
Wow, this feels more like a revival than a press conference. Amen. Amen. So my job is to issue the call. That's what people like me do. It is quite an accomplishment to get Bibles, badges, and business together and all in one room, agreeing on something this big. This reminds us all that Christmas and the holiday season really is a time for miracles, and almost makes you believe there is a God. The country is hungry to see our political leaders work together and find a bipartisan solution to an issue of this magnitude. And I have faith that comprehensive immigration reform is that common ground. And if we do this, who knows what else it might lead to? Things change when people recognize 2 things: the moral issues at stake and what makes sense. Those 2 things. Most social movements are based on both moral imperatives and solutions whose time has come. So we have 2 invisible signs at the Mexican border. 2 signs. One says, no trespass. The other says, help wanted. And 11 million vulnerable people have gotten trapped, stuck between those two signs across our country. They live in fear and danger in the shadows, even though they are potentially the stable workforce that we need. Our utterly broken immigration system enforces unfairness and injustice. It is literally separating families from one another. Our safety, our security, our sanity, and literally our souls are all compromised by this broken and cruel system. So those of us who hold Bibles know this breaks God's heart. And this disobeys God's direct commandments on how we are to treat the stranger. And for Christians, the further acceptance of our present immigration system is a direct violation of the teachings of Christ, who tell us how we treat them is how we treat him. And that has converted us. Plus, the immigrants, even undocumented immigrants, have become part of us, the body of Christ. They are the fastest growing community in all of our churches. We have come to know them and love them. And we see how the law breaks up families, taking mothers and fathers, sons and daughters away from each other. We can't tolerate that anymore. So we are here to stand for their families and to say they are part of our family. Those who own business have seen these immigrants become central to their work, vocation, and success. They literally sustain businesses, start businesses, grow and harvest our food, service and strengthen our economy, and support our way of life. We are dependent on their labor and their lives, but we've not shown them the respect that they have earned, and they deserve. They are vital parts and participants in our communities. They stabilize our workforces and our neighborhoods. It's time we made their presence legal and welcome. And finally, those who wear badges have better things to do than pursuing 11 million people who daily contribute to this nation. To pursue and capture law-abiding people, except for their legal status, makes no sense. And it is wrong not to protect their safety and security instead of making them afraid to ever call upon those with badges to protect them too. And we'd all be safer and more secure if law enforcement could focus on the real and dangerous lawbreakers and criminals and help forge safe and legal channels for people to come and work and contribute. So the Bibles, the badges, and the businesses have come together to make a call. It's very clear. We call upon the political leaders of this nation, Republicans and Democrats, members of the House and Senate, the President of the United States, and the White House, to all stop accepting this broken, dysfunctional, and yes, morally corrupted system. It's time to put old ideological politics aside and do the right thing. Bring people out of the shadows, stabilize our workforces, support good work, reunite our families, make our communities safe for all, and create a path to legal status and citizenship. Do it because it makes good economic sense, as you've heard. Do it because it makes our political life inclusive of us all, as you've heard. Do it because it's what our God tells us to do and our hearts tell us is right. Do it because the nation needs to see political leaders stop blaming each other for the problems, but rather work together to solve them. Do it for the common good. This issue that has divided us has now brought us together. So today, we represent common ground for the higher ground. Thank you.
Great. Again, I want to thank the speakers for sharing their thoughts on how we proceed. So at this point, we'd like to take questions from the press, please.
Please also identify your outlet. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Julia Preston. I'm the national immigration correspondent for the New York Times. I wanted to address my question to the business leaders who are here, which is that one very important factor that we have in the country that we didn't have in 2007 when comprehensive immigration reform was defeated is 7+% unemployment in the country, and a very powerful argument on the part of Republicans who say, why would we be bringing people who broke the law to get here into the system at a time when so many Americans are out of work and struggling? So how are you going to address that issue this time?
Natalie Gochnour with the Salt Lake Chamber. You know, in my state, we have a 5.2% unemployment, so we're about the 6th lowest unemployment rate in the country right now. It's still higher than it should be, and it's of great concern to us. I will say that we do have labor shortages at the high end and at the hourly level in our state. We are in need of, we have a vibrant life science industry. We need scientists, engineers, and we have a very active tourism industry, construction industry, agricultural industry, and we need workers. And the challenge has been to balance the needs of American-trained workers with people that we need from out of country as well.
Yeah, Brad Bailey from the Texas Immigration Solution. As a restaurant owner, I can tell you the Texas Workforce Commission is our kind of whenever we have unemployment benefits and that people go through there that are unemployed. They train workers to join up. I think the states should be able to work with the federal government to administer this temporary worker program, where the people that are unemployed get the first priority on all jobs, Only if they're not available do we then take the guest worker, temporary worker route. You know, coming up here into what I call La La Land, Disney World of politics, it just gets separated. I think the states know their economies a lot better. I think the states know their job creators a lot better. I think they know their needs versus the federal government. And I think it would really streamline the process. I mean, I think the federal government needs to be able to have the authority to say yes or no if this individual come, but we could administer it on the state level. And I think, for our example, the Texas Workforce Commission also is the great thing. On the other note, I think also the people that are breaking the law, the employers that are breaking the law, that are hiring people that are not paying taxes, and that is something that has to be addressed. I have a friend of mine that's in the construction business in Houston. He has E-Verify and goes through the whole process. But because of our broken immigration laws right now, a lot of his people have left, and he's competing against people that are paying 1099 contractors to come work. So they're building schools, they're building churches, they're building federal buildings, and this guy who's following the rule of law and doing everything he's supposed to cannot compete on a level playing field because the system is broken. And that's so important to drive home. We've got to make sure that everyone can play on a level playing field and address the whole problem, not piecemeal it.
Hi, thanks for having this event today. I'm John Gramlich, and I cover immigration with Congressional Quarterly. And I just wanted to note that since the election, it seems like the debate, it's been said that the debate used to be about amnesty versus deportation, and that debate is now over, and now it's about legalization versus citizenship. And I wanted to clarify whether your group is on the legalization side of that rather than the citizenship side of that.
So this afternoon, there's going at the strategy session itself, there's going to be a report released, and one of the consensus principles is that that we found, and this is not something that was made up, this is something that has really been built through a process that's taken 18 months, that's engaged well over 500 leaders from faith, business, and law enforcement, is that there's a belief and a consensus that those who are here, who are workers, temporary workers, and aspiring citizens should be put on a roadmap to legal status and citizenship. At the end of the day, how that happens is going to be determined by members of Congress. We're gathered here as conservatives, moderates, and others to say Congress must act. Nobody here has a vote in Congress, but everybody here has a voice with which to influence Congress. And that, at the end of the day, is why we're gathered.
Hi, Cameron Joseph with The Hill. Kind of dovetailing on what you were just saying, I was wondering, it sounds like I've heard comprehensive reform mentioned a few times today. Are you guys, as a group and as individuals, pushing for one broad-based bill in particular rather than a piecemeal approach? I know some Republicans, even some who have been open to some immigration reforms, have been pushing smaller things. The Achieve Act is out now. Is that an approach you oppose? Or are you guys hoping for more of a comprehensive approach than kind of this, dribs and drabs?
Sure. Turn it over to the panel. Anybody on the panel like to take it? Dr. Land and then Bishop.
I'd say we're united about the result, and whether our congressional leaders decide that it's better to do it with a series of bills or it's better to do it with one bill is really something we elect them to sort out, and we expect them to sort it out. And we're more concerned about the result than we are the methodology and the process. The result being every issue that needs to be addressed is addressed, including not just the undocumented workers, but a broken system. People talk about, well, they should come here legally. Try finding a pathway to come here legally under the present system. I mean, it's like going through Alice's looking glass into Wonderland.
Just the Catholic bishops, we've long have supported a comprehensive approach, and I think the wisdom of that is that to build the consensus that will be necessary to make this kind of bill happen, that I think that we have to look at the whole system together. Again, now whether that means a series of bills or one comprehensive bill, but I think that in order to address so many of the complex issues of immigration in this country, and to bring together the consensus that will be necessary to get a bill through, that it is, I think the path of wisdom is a comprehensive immigration reform.
Mark, and then
thank you. I believe it has to be comprehensive. In 2007, two things really killed that effort at comprehensive reform. One was label everything amnesty, which was a false label, and which we'll address this time. The other was this attitude, well, first we have to secure the border. Once we do that, we can go back and take all these other reforms. You can't piecemeal it like that. I mean, we've learned that now state by state, where the enforcement-only punitive actions of certain states have hurt the economy, have hurt business, have hurt law enforcement and public safety. That's why we in law enforcement are very concerned, is that drove people underground. It made it so we can no longer work with otherwise unauthorized people who are our best informants and work closely with us in going after those who are here in our country illegally to commit crime. The punitive enforcement only, put up the fence and drive people out and shoot them if they come back, or whatever the crazy concept is, that can't be what we have to do. That's the wrong answer. Now, certainly border security issues with regard to who comes in and out is an important part of comprehensive reform, as is fixing legal immigration, as well as dealing with those who are currently here in unauthorized status. So I believe it really needs to be a comprehensive reform.
last comment.
To answer the political question, I want to come back to a theological term raised by my colleague Richard Land. He said this is a kairos moment. Now that means the time is now. Some times are different than other times. And so I think we are calling today for something big, something bold, something that changes all of the issues, something that covers all the questions. And Washington, D.C., let me put it this way, sometimes politics has to be enabled to do the right thing. Social movements enable politics. Both sides have shown they are unable to fix this by themselves. This kind of social movement will enable politics to do the right thing. And I think the sooner, the better, the more comprehensive we can do this now, because now is the time. And Washington, D.C. likes to string things out and lose all the momentum. We're saying now is the kairos moment, now is the time. And I think the country needs to see this town doing something positive in a bipartisan way for the first time in a very long time. And this may be it.
Thank you, Jim.
Hi there, I'm Stephanie Chekalinsky with the National Journal. Speaking of politics, I was hoping that maybe one of you could discuss what the political incentives would be for particularly congressional Republicans to support comprehensive immigration reform if President Obama is the one that gets to sign it.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's running up.
I think I'm the only elected, I think, Republican elected official, 14 years in a position, elected Republican position. And you know, if the past election, if nothing else, gives you an incentive. But let me talk about what happened in Utah when Republicans in one of the reddest of red states said, we're not going to follow the Arizona punitive model. We're going to do something different, at great risk to Republican legislators there. In fact, when they passed these laws, these more comprehensive, progressive reforms, they were targeted by the extreme right, by Tea Partiers and anti-immigration forces. Absolutely, we're going to take you out. We're going to take you out at convention. We're going to take you out in primaries. They had opponents. And those who were pushing for immigration, or Arizona-style enforcement only, tough, punitive measures, they felt like that position would propel them to higher office. They all ran for higher office. And I will tell you the result was that all of those Republicans who stepped up and did the right thing for the right reason, which we're asking Republicans in Congress to do right now, they all survived. They all were reelected. Most of them at convention even, where sometimes more extreme ends of the party have more say. And those who ran for higher office based on this extreme position lost. That's a message Congress needs to see, that you're going to have support in doing the right thing. You're going to have it from mainstream America. You're going to have it from the churches and religious people. You're going to have it from law enforcement and business communities all across this country. That is who is calling for this, and that's the support you'll have. And so it is politically expedient, if that's going to be one of your motivating factors, to do the right thing and do it now.
Sure. So I've been somebody that was very outspoken on these issues prior to my last election. I wound up in a county of 800,000 people having the largest countywide victory margin with almost 64% in a county that's a flip county. And ultimately, as I would speak on these issues, sometimes in faith communities, churches, what have you, I'd have, invariably, I'd have a Hispanic woman come up to me with tears in her eyes who would be reading what the church was saying about the president and religious freedom and how it's at stake, and what should they do. And the immigrant community, some of us are so far removed, if we've been here many generations, forget how connected they are. And they're in it together, and they know somebody. And when it's their immediate relative that has that sense of fear that they're living with on a daily basis, they're not going to get to your other issues. This is the paramount issue for them. So forget about talking about the entrepreneurial spirit, the pro-life value system, what have you. None of that works if we're wrong on this issue, and we are deadly wrong as a party on this issue.
I mentioned earlier the loss of New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, and Florida. Texas probably go next, as will Arizona. So at the end of the day, what's in it for the Republican Party is survival. And so I really believe that the Republican Party, its leadership needs to look at how it's treating how a particular group of people feel they're being treated. Because it's really about how the Latino people felt and feel we're being treated. It's not about how others think we're being treated. And we believe that we've been mistreated. We've showed it at the polls. If we only come out with half of the next group, that we only voted at 60%. So if we continue to feel we're being treated a certain way, we have learned with this election that there is power in our vote, and we have learned that we open up dialogues by voting. So if the dialogue leads to nothing in 4 years, we'll have a larger group, and there'll be other states lost by the Republican Party.
Sam and then Dr.
There's already a model that we can reference. Mid-1990s, I think it was 96, Bill Clinton knew Gingrich, and it was welfare to work. Gingrich walked out. Republicans, the Republican Revolution, they took credit for lowering down the number of individuals on the welfare roll. Welfare to work, it was a Republican victory. Bill Clinton signed it happily. In the spirit of great triangulation, Bill Clinton said, I did that. Little Arkansas, I did that. And Bill Clinton walked out saying, I did it. The Republicans walked out saying, we did it. Till this day, they both take credit. This is one of those same issues. If the Republicans hesitate and wait till the end of the fourth quarter, if they pass this in 2013, they'll have 3 years to redeem the narrative of the Hispanic American electorate. If they wait till the end of the game, it's going to be difficult next time around. So again, it's all about the moral imperative and about doing what's morally right and what's politically lined up with the Republican goals at the end of the day.
Underlining what Samuel said, as I said, they need to not only pass it, they need to embrace it. I wrote a column about the night the GOP began to lose the 2012 election, and it was the night that in the primary last fall, the primary debate, when the audience booed Governor Perry for defending in-state tuition for the children of undocumented workers. I had numerous Hispanic pastors say to me, why should I vote for the Republicans when they don't want us here? You know, George W. Bush got 44% of the Hispanic vote in his presidential bid in 2004. He got half the Hispanic vote in Texas, his last gubernatorial race. The Republicans got 27% of the Hispanic vote this time. The arithmetic of that is the margin between winning and losing. If they can't understand that, then they probably shouldn't be in politics, and they need a course in remedial arithmetic. Of course, President Obama will get credit if he signs this bill, and the Republicans will get credit if they help pass it. And as Samuel said, both sides will claim credit. This is about taking the immigration issue off the table of political issues by fixing it, which will then allow other issues on which Republicans have historically fared better with the Hispanic community to take hold and cause them to get a larger share of the Hispanic vote.
Yeah. Jordan Fabian from ABC News and Univision. Everyone up here seems very optimistic about the chances of passing an immigration bill next year, except I looked back to last week and saw the debate on the House floor over the STEM bill. This is something that Republicans and Democrats agree on, but we saw the same partisan divisions reopen. The bill passed the House. It's probably going to die in the Senate. You know, despite all this talk about the Hispanic vote, about the moral imperative, you know, we just saw the same thing happen again. So I guess, were you disappointed by that? And how can you remain so optimistic about passing an even bigger, more controversial bill considering what happened just last week?
Sure, that's a great question, Jordan. I think what's important to realize is that it's a new beginning. I mean, 2013 will be the dawn of a new day when it comes to the need and the opportunity for reforming our immigration system. This period between the election and the next Congress, also known as the lame duck, is a time where you have a lot of politics and a lot of issues kind of sparking up. You know, from our perspective, STEM, the legislation addressing high-skill immigration, is an important part of fixing the immigration system. But why we're gathered here today and why 250 colleagues from faith, law enforcement, and business are in town over the next 2 days is because we realize that America needs a new national immigration strategy, and 2013 is going to be the opportunity to move that through Congress. So I think that we're gathered here to say that 2013 is a new day and it's a new opportunity.
Pablo Sanchez with Univision News. On this side of the issue of pro-immigration reform, the Bible guys have always been here. Law enforcement has been here too before. Is the linchpin of this new era business?
That's a good question. I think the tide I'm feeling is that a lot of business owners and donors to these candidates are saying enough's enough. I mean, we're tired of the rhetoric. We're tired of the empty promises. We're tired of the go one way, go the other during the general election. You know, when George W. Bush, as governor of Texas, went into the Latino community, spoke his broken Spanish in the Latino community, broke bread with them, appointed him to commissions, appointed him to Attorney General, appointed him to Secretary of Commerce. He genuinely reached out to them and brought them in. Ever since then, I hadn't seen that. I feel like it's, you know, I was on a panel recently and a conservative think tank guy who's, you know, signs the back of the check, doesn't sign the front of the check, you know, but he's a think tank guy, says, you know, Hispanics aren't conservative. Hispanics aren't conservative. What are you talking about? I can tell you I've worked shoulder to shoulder with them. I know they're conservative, but to be able to take a whole, you know, demographic and say they're not one way or the other is crazy in his own right. But I think business owners are saying enough's enough. And we need to honestly reach out to them and be welcoming. I'm in the hospitality business. If you come in our restaurant and you're not welcome and you feel, you know, shunned in that, you're gonna go eat somewhere else. We need to take the line of hospitality and be more welcoming to them. But we also need to make sure we bring the donors in here. I can tell you, recently, Sean Hannity, 2 days after the election, Sean Hannity came out and said, I've changed on my position, and not only do I support immigration reform, I also support a pathway to citizenship. We've never had a voice like Sean Hannity. We need to have groups like ours circle around Sean Hannity and say, thank you so much for coming out, and get behind him on this, because there's a lot more of us than there is of them, but the vocal minorities hijack this issue, and we need to fight back.
Thank you, Brad. And one last question, and then the speakers will be available afterwards as well for follow-up interviews. Antonieta.
Thank you. Antonieta Cádiz with La Opinión newspaper. I was wondering, what are your expectations on the administration side? You mentioned that you expect leadership from the president, but do you expect a proposal from the president, or do you expect that the president supports something that Congress proposed?
The Evangelical Immigration Table Coalition has called upon the president to begin to introduce comprehensive immigration reform in 92 days. Now, the reason why is the word ger, G-E-R, which means immigrant and stranger in the Bible, occurs 92 times. So we had a press conference about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, saying, we were calling upon you to do this now, take action within 92 days of the beginning of your administration. So 2013, we're calling on the President and the White House, and we'll meet with them again tomorrow, I think, with the White House. We're calling on action within 92 days. And that's a specific ask, and we expect it to be responded to. I'm hopeful about their response to that initiative. The meeting tomorrow is with the White House staff, right? White House staff.
The president told the Latino community that it was one of his primary agenda items. He said that previously, but he said that this time he's going to move it. It's our understanding, and it is our hope, and I'll use the word hope, right? We're the Bible people. So it's our hope that that means that he actually is going to call the leadership on the Republican side and have conversations that are not in the press, so you guys don't get it first, but have the conversations that need to take place in the manner that needs to take place, that they need to take place. If this, one of the reporters mentioned, if it becomes a public he said, she said, you know, it's not going to move forward. So we really need for the president to establish his leadership as president, reach out to the House and the Senate on the Republican side, as well as the fringe of his own party. When I say fringe, the far left, who traditionally supports the AFL-CIO and the union groups. The only way we're going to get this is to have the two fringes at least a little bit cease and desist and support the middle on both sides. So it's my hope that the president, as the leader of the executive branch and the leader of his party, will be able to reach out and across the aisle, as he said he would when elected, and start this process privately in that group, in those groups.
The president promised the first term immigration reform. It did not happen. There are skeptics in the Hispanic community, agnosticos, that, for whatever it's worth, a few months right before the election, there was a deferment policy modification that I support, making sure those kids are not deported. But there are skeptics in the Hispanic community saying, was that an act of political expediency, or was he really committed to that as it pertains to a moral imperative? This is his time to prove that it wasn't an act of political expediency, but rather he is wholeheartedly committed. So what's the president's role? He must be the moral and the national spokesperson for comprehensive immigration reform.
Just tell you, this isn't new. We've been meeting for 2 years with representatives from the White House. I personally, last 2 years, dealing with immigration reform, what we did in Utah with the Attorney General, with John Morton, with Ali Mayorkas, with Director of Homeland Security, represented the White House, formed a relationship with Julie Chavez Rodriguez, who is the head of Immigration and Latino Affairs in the White House, multiple times. And I tell you, they've been working and thinking about this and working towards this event. And so this isn't going to be new, that they're going to be taking leadership on this and working directly with Congress. Maybe I just finished. I was just thinking about Julio Rodriguez, whose grandfather is Cesar Chavez. And just the other day, a few months ago, they dedicated a place out in California as a resting place for him. And I was able to talk to Julia and tell her, just remind her that even as a Republican from Utah, I take every opportunity I can to quote her grandfather, which some people may seem strange, Republican from Utah quoting her grandfather. But it's, what he said then with regard to migrant workers in California and that effort is true now. And that is that when he said that, you know, siempre debemos hablar or andar como una sola familia. We have to walk as one family porque estamos en la misma causa. La misma necesidad. We're in the same cause, the same need. So, porque compartimos el mismo futuro. We make up the same future. He said, solo no valemos mucho. Alone we're not worth a lot, but juntos valemos mucho. Juntos. Together we value a lot. And that's true, I think, in this debate, people coming together despite political and other differences in this country. And we're very confident that, that with a lot of hard work, and roll up on our sleeves this year, that we can be successful in this country.
I want to again thank the speakers for coming. We'll have people available for questions afterwards. Thank you.